Welcome to another episode of The Mantracks.
Commentary on Christian life and culture from a pastor's wife and her sidekick, which would be me.
I'm your favorite host, Sarah Mantrack.
And I'm that other one, JJ Mantrack. And here we are, off and running. I did want to say, today is our 20th episode.
Is it really?
Yes. Can you believe that?
No, I can't actually.
You know, it's been a lot of fun. I know, and we joke about this a lot, and it's something I appreciate, though. It's a small podcast. We just got a dozen listeners, and I love it. It's so much fun. Just about everybody who listens, enjoys it. And really, that's all that really, we were never, setting out to become, this big, giant podcast. We enjoy making these. We have a lot of fun, you and I, because we tell these goofy stories to each other, whether we do it into a microphone or not.
That's true.
We just do this constantly, and so it's why don't we share this? And then, occasionally we'll dabble in the, Christian commentary and big things, but also just lots of goofy games and stuff. And so here we are with episode 20.
Cool.
I'm pumped. All right.
Me too.
Are you ready to approach the news desk?
I am ready.
Yeah. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go
I
first?
certainly can go first.
Bring it on.
All right. So my first story is kind of goofy. And maybe you've read
It's
this
what
one.
we do.
Okay. So, a Canadian politician wanted to decrease bike theft, but a bandit had other plans. So a Winnipeg mayoral candidate had wrapped up a press conference that included a plan to crack down on bike theft just hours earlier. When he, just 90 minutes prior, he had done this campaign speech where he was saying that he was going to crack down on bike thefts, and he went to the store with his bike in the back of his pickup truck.
Uh-huh.
And when he returned to his pickup, the bike was nowhere to be found. So his name is Rick Schoen, and he's a mayoral candidate in Winnipeg, and he has a cycling infrastructure plan. And it looks to crack down on bike theft, and he shared this whole thing in his speech, and then after he went to the store with his bike in the back of his pickup truck, he came out and found it missing. He says, I feel so stupid. I was inside for 2 minutes and I got distracted by a question. After the reported bike theft, he sent out a tweet calling for his pedal-friendly transportation to come back to his possession, and it reported it stolen. So he left it locked via a cable to the truck's rack, but somehow it was still stolen off the back of his truck.
What?
I know. So I found that really...
Well, it's a gutsy thing, right? Because politicians, they go out and they do these things in public, and they're mobbed by cameras. It's almost everything they do is a publicity stunt of some sort. It's there's cameras, there's reporters and people, and it's man, it's kind of gutsy to hop into the back of that truck with some bolt cutters or whatever and snip the chain and make off with this prize.
I just found it to be really ironic that he gave a speech on how he was going to crack down on bicycle thefts, and then an hour and a half later, his bicycle is stolen.
So here's a question. Do you think this was a targeted bike theft? They knew the guy and they knew it was his bike and they were going to stick it to this candidate? Or is this truly just, happened to be?
How many people do you know that are I know what the mayor's car looks like. I'm going to go.
That's true.
That's so random. He went to the store with the bike in the back, and I'm sure it was just a random, if it was, someone's very strategic, but at the same time,
it's amazing. The coincidence, or not even just coincidence, but just
it's just so bizarre. I just thought that was such an entertaining little story of you really do got to crack down on those bike thefts and also get your bike back in the process.
I feel it's well, and what is this? He sent out a tweet hey, somebody give me my bike back.
Just people do that. They'll do that on Facebook. I remember I used to be I'd follow people on Facebook and they'd be if you see this bike around town, my bike was just stolen. He tweeted a picture of what his bike looks like.
Interesting.
And he was hey friends, if any of you people see this bike, and he took a picture of it around town, I'd really like my wheels back. He's I like my bike and I want it back.
That is something else.
Just such a random,
that's crazy,
funny story.
All right, I have another story dealing with a mayor, but not in America.
Oh, okay.
So NPR, Venice mayor calls out imbeciles for surfing the Italian city's historic channels.
Really?
They were surfing in the channels in Venice.
Why?
You want to guess where these tourists were from?
America.
Of course they were. Two tourists in Venice, Italy, infuriated the city's mayor by riding motorized surfboards through the famed Grand Canal this week. And this is a couple of weeks.
Surfboards?
Yeah, they have I didn't even know they made motorized surfboards. But there's video prompting Mayor Luigi Brugnaro, which the Italian guy had to be Luigi. I love it. Mayor Luigi, calling them imbeciles who are making a mockery of Venice.
I mean, it does kind of like demean the like old,
Yeah, I mean,
nostalgic.
Yeah, it's Venice. It's the channels like the old in Venice, world, right? Yeah. This is not like a skate park or whatever, Literally, he writes, "Venice is not Disneyland," the mayor wrote as he posted a second video showing the pair skimming their boards under an arched bridge in the city widely known for its serene beauty. Passerbys gaped and filmed the spectacle. But Brugnaro got his wish. The pair were tracked down and their boards were seized in short order, and they were fined $1,500.
Oof.
Yeah. So they both got hit. No. Not American. Australia.
Oh.
I was all ready to be like, Americans are the worst tourists in the world. Australian people. The incident.
Who is like, I think I'm going to go to Italy and I'm going to use a motorized surfboard in the channels of Venice. Like, I guess I'd go on like a gondola tour or something.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so it's like the incident comes 4 years after Venice banned personal watercraft such as paddleboards and kayaks from its main waterways due to overcrowding that snarled the flow of gondolas and vaporetti, which is water buses. The law allows for some exceptions, but they are mainly for residents. So they passed this law that was sense, like, look, gondolas are kind of our thing. This is a big tourist thing. This is a big getting around thing. And we've got these water buses. We can't have all these personal vehicles. So they banned them years ago.
Yeah. I can see that.
And so these guys, I feel like they had to have known what they were doing was not going to fly.
I feel like that's like the equivalent of like going to Mackinac Island where there's no cars and there's horse-drawn carriages and being like, hey, let's drive our mopeds or like our, little something or other around. It's like, you can't do that.
Can't be doing that. I do love this is not Disneyland.
I'm pretty sure you can't have those at Disneyland either. Like, I don't think you can have skateboards and stuff at Disneyland.
Well, and I know these guys are from Australia, but like, if they were American, like, I just feel like and I don't really know what this is, but I feel like Europe just has more respect because maybe they're just because it's been around longer as a country, but like Americans, we just don't look at like old historic things like with the reverence that I think that they do in other places, like especially like in Italy where they have some of the masterpieces and cathedrals and pieces of art and paintings and murals and stuff, and it's like, yeah, we don't care. We're going to surf it.
Watch me while I surf this channel.
Oh, man.
It is interesting. That's weird.
All right, you ready for sponsors of your life?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Am I going first?
Yeah.
Okay. Sponsor my life this week. I think probably the curriculum that we're using for homeschooling this year. We just started on Monday. This past Monday with our homeschool year, and we're using new curriculum for our oldest from a company called The Good and the Beautiful.
The Good and the Beautiful.
And it is a non-denominational curriculum, Christian curriculum.
Christian homeschooling curriculum.
Christian homeschooling curriculum. Really good. So far, I've really liked it. It's very comprehensive.
And Liam likes it. That's the important part, right?
It was a good transition. We had a really, really good, very open-ended, more Montessori style Charlotte Mason approach to kindergarten last year, which worked out really well for kind of having Liam and Amos do stuff together little bit, because Amos wasn't quite ready for preschool yet last year, and this year he's in something totally different, but this new curriculum has been really good, and I enjoyed it. I just got finally, thanks to FedEx, the remainder of our school supplies
finally arrived.
The supplemental materials arrived today, but I like the curriculum so far. It's been working out well.
That's awesome. I'm excited. Let's see. Oh, so for me, the boys have had the sniffles this past week. They've just been coughing and super, just not anything super serious, just enough that it's like annoying.
Yeah.
And the littlest one just happens to cough in your face every time. And so, just sort of as a sort of a simple way to deal with the sore throat is we've been drinking lots of tea. And I got to give a massive shout out. Sponsor of my life this week is Celestial Seasonings. I love their tea. It's fantastic. I've actually visited Celestial Seasonings, their factory out in Colorado, because I think it's based in Boulder or somewhere. It's really close to where my grandparents live. So one time when we were out there, we went and visited the factory. We did a tour, and it was really awesome. They do a lot of environmental stuff. Like, for example, their bags don't have the little string. You just dunk it in and use a spoon for the tea bags, because just cutting out the string alone saves like a bajillion trees or whatever. It's amazing how much string gets used on the tea bags. And so I just was really impressed with their mission and their goals and the way they function. And it's delicious. I don't know if you can hear, listeners, but I'm totally having my tea right now, and it's awesome. So yeah, Celestial Seasonings, delicious, and just definitely a sponsor in my life today.
Cool.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Now, I gave you some warning, but I did not tell you what this was about.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're returning to another segment of Celebrity Christian, Christian Celebrity. For those who are unfamiliar, we are talking about celebrity culture and the way it touches in Christianity. Now, there's two different types. There is celebrity Christian, somebody who is a Christian leader who has become so famous at being a Christian leader that they have become a celebrity in the Christian world. Okay. That's one type. And then there are Christian celebrities, people who were famous already and then have sort of become Christians, or it was discovered that they were Christians or whatever. Last time we talked about Chris Pratt, because he said some stuff about how great God is and everybody got all excited, and then he came out and he was like, well, no, I believe in God. Yeah, I believe in God, but I'm not associated with that yucky religion stuff. And then he really kind of pointed out that God is the thing I want him to be. I believe in the things I like, and has, sort of detached.
I call that God.
Yeah, detached from any kind of real teaching about God. But so anyways, I have another one, and so this is actually connected to the sponsor of your life. I want to talk about the brand new Christian school. Now, if I tell you the name, I'll be really excited if you can figure out who the celebrity is. Okay?
Okay.
A new Christian school came out, was recently opened, called Donda Academy.
Donda Academy?
Donda Academy. And I know for those who know this celebrity, you know exactly who it is. It's a prominent celebrity who became a Christian in the last 3-4 years.
Oh, Kanye?
Kanye West.
Wow. Okay.
Kanye West very famously became a Christian just a couple of years ago. He has been on this roller coaster, very public conversion process. He came out with an album a couple of years ago called Jesus is King, an album I really liked. I thought it was amazing. Then he came out with, I can't remember what it was called. It was like a Christmas album, which was just his choir singing. And then he did another one which was called Donda. Donda is his mom's name. So he came out with Donda. It was not as well received as Jesus is King, but it was another big Christian album. Very recently went through a divorce with his wife Kim Kardashian, and they're sharing custody of their children. Part of the struggle was that he has this whole new value system that is very much at odds with their very glamorous and wealthy lifestyle. And so it's hard to follow, because so much of that, of his world, is like the tabloids, right?
And
I have never been interested in any of that kind of stuff. I know very little about the Kardashians. I know they have a TV show.
I've never watched it.
And they are all extremely wealthy. I know that.
Yes.
And maybe they sell stuff like clothing or perfumes or something. I'm not really. I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
that's
yeah. And so I know. So Kanye was very famous as a rapper back in the day. Got wildly popular. People told him he was just this artistic genius. And then he moved into the fashion world, and he sells shoes mostly. But he has whole clothing lines, and he actually, the bulk of his money nowadays comes from that. He's a billionaire. I mean, he makes a ton of money.
He does.
But he occasionally produces music as well. And he has recently approached the world of Christian education.
I just have so many questions. So he just slapped his name on it? Or like the name?
Donda Academy.
Right.
So you can find out more information at donda.org for Donda Academy. It's an extremely streamlined website. There's almost no information. With his new project, Donda Academy, like his latest album named for his mother, Kanye, who is also known as Ye is building a school that is built on finding the intersection between faith and the innovation of the future. Located in California, the school is also being described as being focused on equipping students with an education that will last in an ever-changing world. While the mission statement doesn't come as a surprise, considering Kanye's recent pivot to religion, it's another aspect of the prep school that is hogging all the headlines. So there are so many big pieces to this story. So number one, the basketball team. Their sports complex is drawing some really big names in the talent in the basketball world. Other thing is that in their daily schedule, let me see if I can bring this up real quick. Each day opens up with full school worship, then core classes of language arts, math, and science. Then they have lunch and recess, and then they have enrichment courses, including world language, visual art, film, choir, and parkour.
Because everyone knows that is enrichment course at its finest.
Is that not amazing, though? Like, a little bit, I'm jealous. Parkour is...
Yeah, okay.
You know, you got to start out your morning with worship, which is pretty typical, I would say, of most Christian schools.
Very typical, yeah.
Then you get all that boring school stuff out of the way, like math and science and language arts. And then you go do parkour after recess.
I'm just imagining Michael Scott and Andy trying to jump from like
parkour.
the refrigerator box and falling in. Like some poor child got hurt in parkour class.
I told you about the basketball players. They're bringing in top-rated high school basketball players who have already committed to transferring to Donda Academy. Mm-hmm. And then apparently he's recruiting the athletes personally.
I mean, who the heck would say no when
Kanye West reaches out and
asks
says,
you,
"Want to come play basketball with me?" Early conversations suggest that a game between Kanye's Academy and Sierra Canyon, where LeBron James's son plays, is tentatively scheduled to go down. So it's like he's setting up this institution. He's like, I've got this basketball team. They're going to be amazing. They're going to play LeBron James's son, you know?
Wow.
Interesting.
How long has this place been around?
Just I think it opened 2022. This is the
beginning of its academic year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
From the beginning. Wow, this is very interesting to me.
So there's the basketball thing. There's the fact that parkour is listed on the schedule.
Yeah, that is just wow.
And then the third piece is the school uniforms. Now, are you familiar at all with Kanye's style? Do you see any pictures of him or?
Vaguely.
So
I am so out of touch with pop culture. It's embarrassing.
Well, and it's so funny.
I mean, maybe it's more embarrassing that I don't care. But...
I don't know if, and I don't. I know very little about Kanye. He kind of came into my world when he produced Jesus is King, and I really liked that album, and I started paying attention to him. Mm-hmm. I didn't know much about him before that. I knew that he was a big deal, but I didn't listen to his music. And so when I saw pictures of him, and I don't know why he dresses this way, I feel like it is heightened in contrast because he is often standing next to Kim Kardashian, who spends so much time on being like very flashy with her appearance. But he basically wears like sweatpants and a baggy sweater,
like oversized clothing all the time.
He just wears like big oversized sweaters and sweatpants, and he's super chill. Like he just
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that sounds super comfortable. That's my uniform of choice. I love a good pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt. So
there was a picture of the Donda Academy students, right? And they're in like, it looks like maybe an art class or something. They're all wearing that. They're wearing sweatpants and like baggy sweaters with the Donda Academy symbol, which is like a dove. It's like a white dove on a black sweater. That's it. They're just like dressed in sweats.
That sounds comfortable.
Well,
and perfect for doing parkour.
Well, and it's very like equal between the genders. You know, it's like it's comfortable. There's no like
girls have to wear skirts, boys have to wear
none of that. They're all
pants,
dressed the same.
I like that.
I think it looks good. I think it's a cool thing. Although I will say, and this maybe is just anytime you dress everybody all in the same thing, it comes across to me a little like
cultish.
Yeah, a little cultish. I'll be honest.
But people think that about Christianity anyway, as it is. So I feel like we're just really leaning into that stereotype.
Well, and he has had such a unique journey into Christianity. Yeah. People have been watching and watch it, like, is he for real about it? And some of the things he has done have been very like, wow, he's for real. And then some of the stuff just really kind of raises eyebrows. And he's always kind of been an odd character, you know, and that's part of his vibe, mystique or whatever. So let's broaden it a little bit. So let's just talk about homeschooling and Christian education in general, because I have seen a lot of people promote Christian education, and obviously I don't have a problem with people going to a school that is Christian, but my concern is that it's, in some ways, it's sort of an escapism from the public schools. You know, there's like fear that they're going to teach me evil things. And so the Christians got to get out of there to you know, run away from the public schools to be safe in a Christian school. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because you grew up in a very different environment than I did as far as education went.
Yeah. I did, actually. I was just imagining you as a high school student. It was really entertaining.
It was really dork. I was a huge dork in high school.
I can imagine. But yeah, so I this question always, like, I feel like I have a lot of opinions on it. Because if you had asked me when I was in high school, as a homeschooled student, I very much disliked homeschooling. Yeah. But I also was coming from like a different angle. Like, and I in some ways, I feel, like you said, it tends to, especially Christian school, at least based on what I had interacted with when I had friends in high school, there were a lot of people that their parents were worried about what the public school was doing. And so it was just an alternative place to funnel the kids in because they didn't want them to be, quote, exposed to certain things. Yeah, yep. And on one hand, I 100% agree with that. And our culture has only, like, intensified in that aspect as, you know,
getting better in the public schools.
Let's be real, I was in high school a long time ago. Yeah. It's been 20 years. So, but I remember having friends that were like, oh yeah, there's a lot of people in my school that, like, Christian school. Most of my friends went to the Christian school. Sure. And they were like, there are a lot of people who, you know, it's almost worse here than it would be in, because there's that guise of, well, I'm here at a Christian school, but my life is in no way reflective of the values of this school. Or
so you're saying even in the Christian school,
right?
It wasn't
right.
great.
It was almost like this second level of like, well, we're Christians, so we're the good kids, but really, like, you just kind of peel that layer back, and it's like, oh, we think we're holier than thou, but we're actually worse. But I knew a lot of the parents who were, like, nervous, and so they would send their kids to the Christian school. Yeah. But the problem was that the kids were not living in a Christian environment at home either, so there was really no. It was like a shelter, like we're gonna shelter the kids, but. I don't know. I feel like on the other hand, too, there's a lot of people who are really fearful, who are Christians, who are like, we don't want our kids in public school. There's a lot of bad stuff. And I agree to some extent, like, there is a lot of problems and you're going to encounter it. But I think the biggest difficulty is that, like, a lot of people are scared to, like, talk with their kids about certain things. And, you know, discernment is really hard to teach at young ages. And if you don't want your kid to interact with something, it's often easier to just remove that, you know, situation so you don't have to deal with that. You know, with your 5-year-old, you know, asking questions about something that may not be appropriate for them to be talking about because they've suddenly been interacting with it at school. Yeah. And it's really hard because it's even harder now for public school teachers than it was, you know, back then. But I don't know. It's interesting because I do feel like there's that element of fear. So parents are, you know, wanting to send their kids to a Christian school or homeschool or whatever, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so to sort of clarify my vague question from before, but it was like, no, you're good. The west side of the state. So we come from opposite sides of the state of Michigan. You grew up over in West Michigan where Christian schooling is a massive thing. It's very popular over on the west side of the state.
Now, you're saying when you say Christian schooling, you mean like a physical school building?
Yes,
or are you talking about homeschooling?
No, I'm talking about like Christian sending schooling. Your kids to a Christian building, a school.
I went to a Christian school for elementary school through 3rd grade,
and then I did homeschooling.
And then I went back for 8th grade, and then I was homeschooled for high school. So
and see, over on the east side of the state, Christian schooling still exists, but I think it is less prominent over on the Detroit side of the state. And I grew up in the public schools. In my tradition, the United Methodist Church, we we have a very tight relationship with the public schools, and religiously the way we understand it is that we are to be a light in the darkness. We are to be outreach, right? We have kids who are supposed to be like little missionaries, right? Like we're supposed to be a good influence on the students around us, and you know, God willing, be able to tell them about Jesus or invite them to church or whatever. And so that was always how it was framed to me, was that your school is not a Christian place. But we were the ones, like, I started 2 different Bible studies, one in middle school and one in high school, you know? That was something that was a part of our presence in the public schools. And then more recently, now that we're in Flushing, I've been talking to some of the other pastors who have their kids like in the private schools, and some of them who have their kids in the public schools. And it's really fascinating to really talk about like the mentality behind, okay, should Christians be, you know, like if we all pull out of the public schools, what's left in the public schools? Like we complain about, oh, the public schools have bad influences, or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, you pull all the Christians out, what's left? You know? And yet the pushback on that I have heard is, yeah, but children are not missionaries. They're not trained, you know? And so they're not fully prepared to be that good influence.
And I think that instead of like throwing a Bible in our kid and being like, you need to go change your classroom, I think
go proselytize to your friends right now.
Grassroots movement style of, you know what, let's raise kind kids that are teaching good, you know, and teach them good character values and help instill good character values in them. And that starts small, but it can make big changes. And I know it sounds so cliche and hard, but like being that person in your classroom to other kids that may be influenced by that is a much better way to start, instead of saying, hey, go out and proselytize to all of your friends. Like, you know, plant the seed and watch it grow, and that will spread. But I feel like, I see the idea behind it, but I also feel like that's a lot to ask your 5-year-old to like go out and start like proselytize, like, and also like recognizing like kids don't always understand what's appropriate and not appropriate to start just like, you know, sharing with people or talking about with people. And it's like adults, we can recognize like when it's okay to press an issue and be like, I really want to pray for you. Or kids will not necessarily understand. This is not the moment to start sharing something loudly. Like we're, you know, it might not be the right moment, but I mean, I think having kids be able to have that like unguarded freedom of their faith to be like, not ashamed to share, that's very valuable. But I wouldn't say that I want my kid to be like out there with a Bible, like, you know, standing on a thing, like yelling at everyone that they need to repent or die or something. Like,
but that's not what they're taught at home.
No. So yeah, I feel like they can still share the love of God and by starting out with being kind and stuff. But yeah, I don't know about
one of the things that concerns me about Christian education, and I mean that not like Sunday school at church, but Christian, like schools that are Christian in nature, I have no problem with them at their face value, right? Like the idea of a building that has a mission and their kids are going to start out with a worship service and they're going to have Bible class in addition to all the other classes. Like that's not a bad thing. That's a wonderful thing, particularly if that's where the family is at and that's something they want to do. But there's a historic, well, there's 2 things, I guess, that really worry me. The first is the historic trend of escapism, right? The rise of Christian schools has deeply embedded in the civil rights movement and running away from integration. That, you know, some of the first privatized schools were the ones that, oh no, we don't want black people, so we're going to declare ourselves a Christian school. You can't touch us, and it's whites only. And that like Bob Jones University, I think, is a pretty classic example of that. And that's really a stain, I think, on Christian education in our history. Like that's a terrible reason to be pulling out of the public schools and saying, no, we don't want this color kid with this color kid. And I think we have to kind of acknowledge that and say, okay, yeah, that has been in the past, and that's a problem. That's the wrong reason to have Christian academic pursuits. You're using the religious exemption, you know, the second piece that I'm interested in is that I think a lot of parents think by sending their kids to a Christian university, they did their job. Right?
Like a Christian elementary school. And...
Yeah. I don't have to talk about Jesus at home. They're going to get it at school. And I honestly, we see that in Sunday school. Parents send kids off to church or youth group or whatever. And it's like they will do the talking about God thing. But I think you and I have found in our experiences with friends and also people we know, if it's not reinforced in the home, if you're not teaching your kids and talking to them about Jesus and reading your Bible with your kids, they're not going to hang on to it very well.
It's tough for me because I hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying. I, to an extent, disagree though, because in my experience, based on what I have seen in my, like, in growing up in my past and everything, that wasn't true. Like, it was more the mentality of, like, you don't ever want to put the bumpers down for your kid. Like, you want those bumpers to be up for your child's entire education. Like, like it was more of a protection thing. Like, we are protected by being in a Christian school because it was so dangerous to be in the public school. They were very religious people that I knew that sent their kids to Christian school. Most of the people were very religious. They were very, like, we're always talking about the Bible. We're going to church on Sunday. Like, they were some of the most, like, religious people I knew.
Sure.
But it was almost like a very sheltered area where it was like there was a lot of fear in going to the public school. There was a lot of fear in what if my kids go to public school and interact with these things. In my experience, based on what I have seen, you know, growing up, and this is just from my own very limited experience because, like I said, I grew up, I was very, like, my friend group was all from church. Like, I was homeschooled, so I interacted with a lot of kids that were from my homeschool group, but they were all members of churches as well. And all of them in my homeschool group were all religious, just by nature being from West Michigan. There were a lot of us that were, you know, from various churches and stuff. But, like, in the kids that I knew that went to Christian school, you know, elementary school and high school, it was very much like this is, you know, this was your trajectory. You went to Christian school through elementary school, and then you went to the Christian high school, and then you were expected to go to one of the Christian colleges in the area that were appropriate, you know, for, you know, based on your denomination or based on your, like, your connection with them or what your parents had done or what have you. And it was more of like we kind of go through this trajectory of this is what's safe and this is the sheltered area where it's good for Christians because interacting with those other things could be problematic or dangerous or just not something you wanted to interact with. And there was a lot of, like, down and on, like, the public schools and how bad they were and all the kids that end up at the public schools, which I think was unfair because I feel like if you really truly believe that your kid has been instilled with the values of Christianity, you shouldn't fear where your child is attending school. And I think if you're really truly connected to your kid and you're not fearful of the world, and you're not, because God placed us in the world and it told us that we need to be the salt and the light. We're not supposed to be afraid of the world because we're supposed to live in the world and we're supposed to be that light to others. I feel like if you really have faith and you feel that you as a parent have truly instilled your child with those good values, that they should be able to be placed in that situation with a support system, you as a support system and others as a support system. You're not just throwing them out into the middle of the ocean, that they should be able to swim and, you know, navigate those waters without drowning. And I feel like there was so much fear that the kid was going to drown that you never threw him out into the pool. You just kept him in the shallow end and you kept them in those floaties because you weren't, you know, you didn't feel comfortable enough taking the bumpers down. So it was Christian elementary school, which had the Christian middle school attached all the way to the Christian high school, and then you ended up at Calvin College or wherever in Grand Rapids. You know what I mean? So I feel like that was it was a very common thing that I saw, and I mean, no shade on those people. Like, absolutely 100%, they were doing what they felt was best for their kids and their family. And that is, I understand as a parent, it is totally different when it is your child. Like, you have your comfort level and you are doing what you feel is best for your child. But I do think sometimes we as Christians sometimes get so caught up in, like, but there's so much going on in the world, this is not great, I don't want my kid to interact with this. We forget that we are living in the world. We're not supposed to escape the world. God placed us here so that we can minister to the world. For sure. And we just want to keep with our group and we want to just not interact with the world. And it's like, there's some things missing there.
Yes. I think there's a temptation to just sort of, this is the answer, and then you just stamp it on every child, and it's like, no, kids are different, you know, and parents are different, and we all have our different strengths and weaknesses, and
every situation is different. Like, Yeah, it's never going to be a one-size-fits-all thing.
Yeah, and I just think, like, if your kids are in the public schools and you're a Christian parent, you got to talk to them about their faith and how their faith interacts with all of these topics. But then on the flip side, if your kid is homeschooled or if your kid's in the Christian schools, you got to talk to them about what's out there in the world. And not in just a, it's scary and it's bad, but hey, here's what this looks like. Here's how you engage with this. Here are the real people in your life that you can talk to. I don't know. You kind of have to expose your kid to all the things, whatever they're not getting from their education, they need to be exposed to to some degree.
In a healthy way that's
so
good
that
for
they're
discussion.
prepared.
Yep. I fully agree.
Yeah, all right. So, Kanye West, Donda Academy.
I'm going to look this thing up after.
Mind-blowing. It's fascinating. It's a simple website. It's just donda.org. I'll read their mission. We'll close out with this. It says, using an ethic of integrity and care, Donda Academy prepares students to become the next generation of leaders, thinkers, and innovators by providing them with a world-class education that includes a rigorous core curriculum and an emphasis on sustainability, creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. And then in parentheses, I'm going to add, and parkour.
A well-rounded Christian education, too.
Oh, man. With awesome school uniforms and a basketball program to boot. I mean, this is just such an interesting story. Kanye West has been a fascinating Christian celebrity Christian topic. And I think he'll probably come up again as he continues to riddle out what it means to be a Christian in the modern world and how much he really wants to do this Christian thing.
Yeah.
Because it is a massive, denial of the previous life that he's been living. A denial of the previous life he was living. And so, all right. Hey, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Just gonna trip over the ending here. No, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate this podcast. We've now put out 20 episodes.
Amazing.
It's been just so much fun. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for keeping us going with all your comments and reviews. You know, if you're on Spotify, hit those 5 stars. On Apple, you can actually write out a review. I'm tired. We need to be done.
Is that tea in your mug there?
I promise it is. Oh man.
Oh my goodness.
No, yeah. If you type out a review, we will read it on the show and share it because we just appreciate your words. Yeah.
And thanks so much to Music Town for the use of our theme song. Don't forget to check us out on social media, Facebook pages, Instagram, and Twitter, all that good stuff.
All right, you ready to send us out with the mom joke of the week?
I am. What rock group has 4 men that don't sing?
Oh.
Mount Rushmore.
No. All right, everybody. Bye. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.